G'day guys, it's Stu from Plan Managers Assist, and today I've got Mary from Nineveh Care here. Mary, how are you going?
Good, thank you. Pleasure to be here. Really excited.
I'm really excited to have you here. The reason I'm excited to have you here is because you're not a support worker per se. I mean, you're actually a young entrepreneur, a person who is actually not just looking to try and do it themselves, you're actually doing it.
That's right.
So, I mean, in terms of what you must experience as you started versus where you're sort of going, in terms of the challenges that you might see, I can only imagine the level of maybe potentially bias or even judgment that you might receive on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a bit more about how that sort of goes for you and how that comes across each day.
I think one of my biggest hurdles I faced early on, and even still to this day, is being underestimated because of my age.
Yeah.
The NDIS space, it's filled with knowledgeable professionals, and I think the very first thing I noticed was when I was introducing myself and stepping into spaces that I didn't think I would feel welcomed in, was the very first question being asked is, how old are you? Can you even be doing this? And it's like, well, it doesn't necessarily have to come down to my age. Anyone can know anything, and when you're starting out, you don't necessarily know everything. But I think it's that willingness to adapt, learn, and overcome those challenges.
Absolutely. When it comes to these sorts of things as well, I imagine that a lot of the bias around age, it goes away with certain people. So for example, if you were, say, the child of someone who was already a well-established person with the NDIS, no one would question a young person like that coming in and trying to run a business. But you're then also fighting not only the bias of the age, being of a young age, but also them not knowing who you are and feeling like you have to justify your existence when you really shouldn't have to.
That's right.
And I mean, you're much younger than I am. You're much more knowledgeable in the NDIS than I am. So it's not necessarily an age thing. It is purely an experience and understanding and knowledge thing when it comes to being in this space and having those skills. And I think that's something we really need to look at making sure that we maintain. So then how do you take the time or work with the idea of personally trying to grow as a leader? I mean, you're facing these biases from your clients or your prospective clients, and then from your own team. How do you go about growing personally as a leader?
I think it's a balancing act for sure. One thing I've had to master and still try to focus on to this day is resilience, and that's both professionally and emotionally. There's always a new challenge, whether it's managing staff, keeping up with compliance, or addressing client needs. But ultimately, I've noticed it comes down to delivering results. And when people are satisfied with the level of care that you're delivering and the fact that you're putting their needs in the forefront of everything, because unfortunately not many people do nowadays, they all get caught up in the grander scheme of things. But when it comes to that and they see results and you're putting them first in everything that you do, then there really is, that judgment tends to go away, really.
Yeah, and you're right. It's about breaking down that initial barrier and those initial walls of, you're young, what do you know? Or you're young, what can you bring? But you're demonstrating that by just the way you carry yourself, and then, as you said, the results that you're then delivering for participants and their providers. So I guess that's really what it comes down to. And so absolutely. And I guess another thing I want to touch on is that support that you talked about, is that how do you stay positive in all of this? I mean, it must get you down quite a lot, or it must be feeling like an overbearing weight quite a lot. And then so how do you encourage others that are like you, maybe the ones that are wanting to do it and maybe feeling afraid to try, or want to do it but don't know how to start? What would you say to them?
I'd remind people that your age isn't a limitation, it's an asset. So this isn't, when it comes to age, not necessarily being young, so to say. Some people can also perceive you as being too old to enter or branch out and do something new. Everything is a risk, but it's a risk worth taking. And I think being someone who's young, who's wanting to start out and do this, you bring fresh perspectives and ideas to industries like the NDIS, where innovation is desperately needed. Everyone's essentially doing the same thing, delivering the same supports, but I guess the point of difference is what makes you different, what makes you stand out. So if you're just starting out, I'd say don't get caught up in the perfection trap. You're going to make mistakes, learn from them, adapt from them, and keep going.
Absolutely. Perfection can sometimes be paralyzing, especially if you are feeling underestimated. You feel like you have to overcompensate by over-delivering just to justify your existence. And that's not necessarily, I mean, yes, it is more prevalent with a young person because they have to prove themselves, whereas a person who is of middle age might not necessarily have that initial stigma behind them. But that perfectionism, it's not that you're doing it because it's just the standard job. You're feeling like you have to overcompensate can then become detrimental to you delivering great stuff, because that comes with everything else that you do, with the knowledge and the wealth of experience that you have. It's not necessarily going to be that you need to be perfect to the point of fear of paralysis. It's that paralysis analysis is what it's called. I know we talked a little bit briefly, Mary, about the idea of what a young entrepreneur could probably do to sort of get going, but what would be that piece, that key thing to take away that would get them to take that first step What's going to be the way that they do that first step to actually say, I'm going to try and do this?
My message is simple. I'd say be bold and back yourself. Very early on during my career, I had a lot of ideas that I wanted to execute, but what was holding me back was the fear of failure. And essentially that's something I've had to fight. You belong here as much as anyone else, and that essentially your efforts will be a reflection of the results that you deliver. So everyone's going to start out somewhere, you're going to fail, and even a year, 2 years, however long it is down the track, you're still going to make mistakes. It's inevitable. It's not something that you can put aside. Everyone experiences these.
And it's exactly right. It's not even again, this is another thing that is not much a young person thing. I mean, the idea is that if anything, it's advantageous to be trying to do this when you're young, because you can afford the time to make a mistake. You can afford to get things wrong and not feel like it's all over Red Rover, because you've got so many opportunities in front of you to either really build, try again, try a different way of doing things. You could even start a podcast in your mid-30s and wonder why on earth you thought this was a good idea. No idea who would do that. But the idea is that you are going to make mistakes. You are going to get it wrong, and that's okay. Then we take that out of it, we take the fear of failure out of it, it then starts to become easier to take that first step. And Mary, you're absolutely right. Not only do you need to have the bravery to do it, stick with it, stick the course, make that mistake, fail at landing, it's okay. And you're absolutely right. And this is exactly what you're giving these people today.
And I'd say at the end of the day, your success isn't measured by how much you know starting out. It's measured by your willingness to learn, adapt, and keep going. And that's something I keep coming back to.
Exactly. I mean, you'd have to be crazy. I mean, anyone who thinks that you know everything, it's the day that you should walk away. Because if you think you know everything, you clearly don't. It's time to take a step back. If you're in this industry, and in any industry, but if you're in this industry particularly, you've got to be always open to learning, regardless of whether you're 21 or 61 or whatever it is in between. It doesn't matter. If you're willing to learn, there are going to be people willing to teach. But again, Mary, before we let you go, I know that Nineveh Care, we didn't get a chance to really touch too much on what you actually do with your business. Tell us more about what you're doing.
So with Nineveh Care, we're actually a mother-daughter duo. So it's myself as the founder and my mother behind the scenes. And we focus on delivering core supports across Sydney. So whether that's in-home supports or community-based participation supports, that's something that we deliver. And that ranges from ages 7 to 65. And hopefully in the coming months, we'd also be branching out into the aged care space. So watch this space.
Awesome. And so in terms of what makes those core supports different, because there are a lot of core providers out there.
That's right.
Let's be real. What makes yours different?
We really focus on culturally sensitive supports. So with Nineveh Care, we initially started out supporting the Assyrian community, which we noticed was a niche in this type of industry. No one was really delivering supports to that community. And from then on, we've just expanded to support everyone of all different backgrounds and ages.
Fantastic. And again, it's that knowing your niche. It really is powerful, regardless of the type of work you're going to do. So thank you so much for coming and really appreciate you coming in.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.